Good afternoon. It's noon on Tuesday, so it's time for Thinking Tuesday. Let me take these specs off. It's time for Thinking Tuesday. How are you doing? And thank you for joining me. It's always a pleasure to be here with you on Tuesday at noon. How you've been cultivating your thoughts, fertilizing your mind. What kind of thoughts are you harboring? Hope they're positive ones because that's all we do here on Thinking Tuesday. We check in with our minds. We check in with our thoughts and see how they're serving us. And we have adopted the motto here on Thinking Tuesday that your mind is a garden because it really is. And your thoughts are the seeds because they really are. And you can grow flowers. You are that gardener that decide if you're going to grow flowers, which are those positive thoughts, develop that positive mindset, or you can also choose to grow weeds. And you know what happens when we don't pluck weeds, they just run wild. Some of them look beautiful, but still, they're weeds. Weeds are weeds. So that's our motto for Thinking Tuesday, to help you to begin to get a picture in your mind. We use that as a metaphor for your mind. Your mind is a garden, and your thoughts are the seeds. And you, the gardener, can grow flowers or grow weeds. So it's very, very important for us to check our thinking because our thoughts are our lifelines. So recently, someone who produces an e-newsletter, ask for some quotes, some favorite quotes. And one of them, which I'll tell you in a minute, and you've heard it before, just came to the top of my mind, and I'll share that with you. But before I do that, I want to set the stage for today's talk. And I want to read you a quote, which is not the quote I'm talking about, but I want to read this quote by another very great thought leader, James Allen. And it's in the foreword of his book, As a Man Thinketh. As a Man Thinketh. And James Allen said, and now I got to put my specs back on. Give me a minute. James Allen said that when he wrote As a Man Thinketh, he said the object of this book is to stimulate men and women to the discovery and perception that they themselves are makers of themselves by virtue of the thoughts which they choose and encourage. That mind is the master weaver both of the inner garment of character and the outer garment of circumstance, and that they may have hitherto woven in ignorance and pain, they now may weave in enlightenment and happiness. So what James Allen is saying here is that we are the master weavers of who we become based on our thoughts. And we cultivate what goes on the inside, and we also cultivate what goes on the outside based on our thoughts. He said, by virtue of the thoughts that we choose those thoughts. And that's what I was referring to when I was talking about, when I referred to our motto, that we are those gardeners that choose what kind of flowers. James Allen is saying the thoughts that we choose and encourage. If we keep thinking about them all the time, they become part of our belief system. And our belief system drives how we behave, how we show up in the world, how we show up for our families, how we show up on our jobs, how we show up in our social lives, right? So our thoughts the mind is the master weaver, he said. And It weaves what goes on inside of us, what we believe, how we develop, and it also weaves our circumstances because we are also responsible for many of the things that happen around us. There's some things that's going to happen to us, but it all depends on how we think about how we're going to interact with those things, how we're going to respond to those things. We always have that choice. So we we have the choice of determining how our circumstances will be ultimately, right? And it's saying further, James Allen is saying further that some of these circumstances might lead to pain. They might have been born out of pain. They might have been born out of ignorance, because when we don't know something, we make mistakes, and we all make mistakes. But how we turn that around based on how we're thinking. He talks about enlightenment and happiness. We can, based on how we think, we can change those thoughts. We can change the way we approach those things, which lead to enlightenment and happiness. So again, it goes back to what I'm saying, what I said before, that your thoughts are your lifeline. We are fully in control because the way we think drives the way we feel, and the way we feel drives what we do, and what we do leads to what we have. So in the end, we are responsible for the results. It might have started with someone else, but we are the author and finisher of our lives. And it leads me to that quote that I mentioned at the top of the hour. It leads me to one of my other favorite thought leaders, Wayne Dyer. Wayne is saying, he said similar, or extended it a little bit, but it's pretty much in the same realm of what James Allen is saying. And this is the quote that I sent to my friend who publishes that e-newsletter. She was asking for quotes that you really believe in, your favorite quotes, and this one immediately came to mind. And Wayne Dyer said that when we change the way we look at things, the things we look at change. See, the change really starts with us. How do we perceive what's going on with us? How do we interpret what's going on with us? How do we interpret somebody else's behavior towards us? How do we deal with it? How do we determine how we're going to respond to that? So based on how we look at that situation, based on how we interpret that situation, we're going to make a decision of how we respond to it. So when we change the way we look at things, those things don't necessarily change, at least, but because we begin the change within us, how we allow ourselves to perceive that situation in a different way, where we can have some results, where we can have some resolution, where we can be more in control, then things change. So when we change the way we look at things, when I change the way that I look at things, the things that I look at change, because it initiates with me. And I really want to convey to you how much control we have, how much control we have. Many times we are too reactive. Something happens and we just respond. It's like we have a gut feeling, we respond without thinking. And we want to try to interrupt. We want to leave a little gap between what it is that we're perceiving and how we're going to respond. We don't want to have such a delayed reaction that we lose the impact that we want to have. But sometimes it's best to just step back and think, what is it that's happening to me? What does this mean? What are the results that I would like to have? Because many times we're so quick to respond that we lose the benefit of the result that we would like to have. So tune into your thinking. Be aware of what you're thinking. In the end, you are going to be in control rather than having that thing or that person, those circumstances, have control over you. So I just wanted to encourage you, no matter what's going on. I know there's a lot going on in the world. I've been getting a lot of calls from people that they're feeling heightened anxiety because of uncertainty, because of things that are happening in their lives. And it's good that you're reaching out. And my goal is to help you as a coach, as a therapist, to look at those things in a way that can lead to better results for yourself. We're not going to ignore those things. We're not going to sweep it under the rug. But the way in which you begin to think about them, the way you begin to see them, the way you begin to interpret them, you have to give yourself some options, because ultimately you have all the control that you need. It might be an uphill climb. And like in last week's message, I shared about the pain, the discomfort that we experience when we're trying something new, when we're getting out of our comfort zone. Expect that. Expect that. But like I said last week also, there's no pain, there's no gain without pain. It doesn't mean that we have to wallow in the pain. You know, we can visit it, we can look at it, try to figure out why it's so painful, but we don't have to sit there. We don't have to sit there. We don't have to live there, actually. Okay? So, how we approach things really has to do with our mental capacity, how we think them through. And sometimes you need someone to hold your hand to help you walk through difficult situations or avoid situations getting as difficult as they could be. So you got it, and I got you. You don't have to do this alone. So I hope that this has been encouraging for you. I hope that it has added value to you. And if it has, as I always say, please share it with someone who could also benefit from these messages. You can go back to my previous messages on my YouTube channel, Thinking Tuesday, Cheryl Burton. Feel free to reach out to me through my website, drcherylburton.com, to see many of the programs and services that I offer and to request a confidential, complimentary consultation if you would like to share some information with me to help you begin to move from where you are to where you would like to be, because nobody feels stuck. Nobody likes to feel stuck because stuck stinks. Who wants that? So reach out to me. You can also book me to speak through my website. I look forward to seeing you next Tuesday at noon for another opportunity to elevate our thinking, stretch our minds, elevate our mind, sow positive seeds, remembering that you are in control. When we change the way we look at things, the things we look at change. And remember, as James Allen said, that you and I, we're all master weavers of the things that we think, which leads to the feelings that we have, and which leads to what we do, and the final results. So we want those final results to be positive. So take care. I look forward to seeing you next Tuesday at noon for another message on Thinking Tuesday. Take care. Have a wonderful, I'm not going to say have a wonderful day. I'm going to say create a wonderful day, because you are in full control of how your day goes. Take care. Bye for now.